So, where does food come from? That's right, most of the food that we eat comes from the countryside, from farms. Now, we're going to read it during our lesson, but we need to know the meaning of these words. Anchor, correspondent, crops, drought, food shortage, greenhouse, reliable, and soil. Please pause the video while you look for a synonym or a simple definition for these words. Okay, great. Now, I want you to please match the words with the definitions over here. For example, number 1, a long period of time when there is no rain and people do not have enough water. That is a drought. Number 2, a pile of decaying plant matter that is used to improve soil. This is compost. Now pause the video and work on the rest, please. Okay, next is conference. 4, harvest. 5, export. 6, environmentalist. 7, import. And number 8, vertical farming. Now, we're going to use this vocabulary during our lesson. And let's continue. Now, we're going to be talking about overpopulation now. So, do you think Guatemala is overpopulated? Why do you think so? We're going to discuss this in class. Okay, great. Now, world population is expected to rise by 3 billion in the next 10 years. Now, do you think this will affect Guatemala in the future? And if so, why? How is it going to affect us? Please pause the video and write down a few ideas so we can share in class. Great. Go to student book 85. Here, we're going to rewrite the sentences starting with the words given here. If you need to, please check the interview in the previous page to do it. Number 1. Some people expect the population to rise by 3 billion. The population is expected to rise 3 billion. Pause the video and work on 2 and 3. Great. Number 2. The idea was invented by Dixon de Pommier. And 3. Crops won't be affected by the weather. Okay, so if you notice, the sentences change a little. Let's take a look at this. I want you to please read these 2 sentences. What is the difference between them? World population is expected to rise by 3 billion. People expect world population to rise by 3 billion. If you notice, we're given the same information. However, the order of the subject and the object changed. Let's take a look at this. I want you to please read the sentences again. First, identify the action. That's right, you should find is expected and expect. Now, who makes the action and who receives the action? Well, you will see that people is who makes the action. And who receives the action? Well, the answer is world population. Now, as you can see, only in one of the sentences I have a doer, somebody who's making the action. Let's take a look at this and how this works. We're talking about active and passive voice. Now, in an active sentence, the subject makes an action. Like, people expect the population to rise by 3 billion. As you can see, people is the doer. Now, in a passive sentence, the object is the main part of this sentence. It receives the action. World population is expected to rise by 3 billion. As you can see, world population does not do the action, it receives it. Now, in the passive, we can omit the doer if you don't know who the doer is or if it is not relevant. Look here. They haven't built vertical farms. Of course, as you can see, that is an active sentence. But a passive sentence would be, vertical farms haven't been built by them. Now let me ask you, do you know who they are? Do you think they are relevant? No, right? We don't know who they are, so they are not really relevant. We're just talking about people in general, so we're going to eliminate this. And we're just going to say, vertical farms haven't been built. Now, if the doer is important, just introduce it by saying by, and of course, the person or the thing that does the action. Let's continue. Now, as you can see here, I have these sentences. People expect world population to rise by 3 billion, and world population is expected to rise by 3 billion by the people. If you notice, the doer changes position, and of course, if it is relevant or if I know who the doer is, I will use it with by. My verb changes a little, and the receiver, of course, changes position as well. It becomes a new subject. So, in the active sentence, we have the doer, the action, and a receiver, but in a passive order, we have the receiver, the action, and the doer if we need it. Something you need to remember is that we are using an auxiliary verb. We're going to use the verb to be, and this is followed by the past participle form of the main verb. If you see the first sentence, people expect world population to rise by 3 billion. Expect is in simple present. Now look at the passive form. World population is expected to rise by 3 billion. If you notice, I'm using my auxiliary be, and I'm using it in the same form that it was in the previous sentence. Be, in this case, is in simple present. And of course, then I use the past participle of my verb, expect. Now, of course, if this sentence were in the past, I would say, world population was expected to rise. In the future, it would be, world population will be expected to rise. But of course, the only thing that is going to change is your verb to be. The past participle will stay like that. Great, let's continue. Now, let's go to workbook page 58. Exercise A. Here, you need to complete the sentences with the correct passive form of the verbs in parentheses. Look at the example. With global warming, it is thought that harvests in some part of the world by drought. Now, how are you going to do this? Well, we have will. Then we need to use verb to be. Will be affect or affected? That's right, will be affected because we're using the past participle of our verb. Pause the video and work on the rest, please. Okay? So the next answer should be developed, have been grown, can be grown, is hoped, will be sold, is produced, will not be transported, would be imported. Now, remember that after a modal, we should use the base form of our verb. In this case, after modals like will, must, can, and would, we're going to use verb to be in the base form, be. Let's continue. Now for your homework, go to student book page 85, exercise B. You're going to rewrite the underlined parts of the sentences by using the passive voice. And of course, add a by where you need it. Let's do the first few. So, they will grow crops in water? If you notice, I rewrote that part by saying, so crops will be grown in water? I know they do this already. I know this is done already. But how does it work? Well, they add nutrients. We're going to say nutrients are added. And of course here we are omitting they, right? This is not relevant to the water. So the plants use less energy to get the nutrients. So by the plants to get the nutrients. We're going to check the rest in class, okay? Pause your video. Great. Now, please go to your page 58. Here, you're going to rewrite each sentence in the paragraph in the passive without they. Look at the example. Organic food is food that they grow without pesticides. Organic food is food that is grown without pesticides. Pause the video and work on the rest, please. Okay, we're going to check this in class. I will see you then. Bye-bye!